So, you want to fly your FPV drone in low light, but there is just one large blind spot they come with. Once that sun goes down or you lose your primary light source, your drone baby camera goes to shit. However, there are some steps you can take to combat this. That's why in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you some tips I've gained through my research and experimentation to help you get better drone shots in low light. A pre-tip is, if you can help it, try to avoid shooting and filming in pure night with your drone. Not only does this come with legal extra steps you have to take, but also it becomes a lot harder to fly line of sight and with FPV when you can't see much. If you're trying to shoot a night scene with FPV, consider doing it during blue hour, which occurs right after golden hour as the sun sets right below the horizon. The blue hue of the sky will give a convincing night look used in a lot of films, and plus it'll help with your exposure because there's still a little bit of light shining from the sun. After figuring out the time that you want to fly and film, the next most important thing you're going to want to lock down is your location. The most important things you're going to want to consider when picking a location to fly in low light is safety, space, and lighting. I would recommend picking either places you're familiar with already, or if it's a new place, scouting it ahead of time during the day so you can kind of get an idea of what you're going to be dealing with once all the lighting is gone. When picking a spot for my last night shoot, I went on Google Maps to search some areas, and I also consulted a couple of friends with a description of what I was looking for. After a couple of hours of searching online, an hour or two of scouting in real life, I deemed one location suitable for our needs. An open, high space with city lights in the background, which would be far enough away to avoid bothering others, while still emitting some source of light. Keep in mind, the only way we're going to have a successful low light shoot is if we best line up the conditions for our camera to properly expose for the image. Which brings us to our next important step, which is GoPro/camera settings. I say GoPro because if you're flying FPV, there's a high chance you're using a GoPro as your capture camera, but this applies to all cameras as they are just basic camera settings. Next thing I'm going to suggest might polarize the FPV community because I know we all like our different frame rates. Some people like shooting in 60 to slow down. However, in this case, shooting at a lower frame rate actually gives you a slight advantage in low light. And the reason for that is the 180-degree shutter rule. It's basically a simple but effective way to achieve cinematic motion blur in your videos. And this applies to all cameras, not just FPV. For example, if we're shooting in 60 frames per second, you would double that and your shutter speed would be 1/120. If you're shooting 30, you double that, 1/160, and if you're shooting 24, 1/48 or 1/50 depending on the camera. A higher shutter speed is going to allow less motion blur, but it's going to let in less light. A lower shutter speed, however, will cause more motion blur, but it will give you more light, which is exactly what we want, especially when we're filming in low light. We want all the light we can get available to us. Aperture or f-stop is typically something we can use to adjust the level of light that's coming in, but in this case, it's fixed on the GoPro at 2.8. So we're gonna move on to the next thing you can control, which is ISO. The ISO function on your GoPro is your camera's sensitivity to light. A lower ISO, say 100, is going to allow less light in, but it will be a cleaner image with less noise. While a higher ISO is actually going to allow more light into the image in exchange, however, for more grain and more noise. GoPros seem to do pretty well at keeping a clean image up to about 400 ISO. Once you push to 800, you start to definitely see grain. 1600, it's even worse, and for the love of God, try your best not to go above 1600, because if you hit 3200 or even more, it just looks like a Ring doorbell at night. It's just so grainy and bad. Like, please try your best not to do that, which is why it's important to pick a location that has somewhat lighting around. Regarding color temperature and white balance, auto white balance should be fine, but here is a filmmaking tip I learned from Brandon Lee. He says because a lot of us, when we watch films, are associated using blue as dark. That's what a lot of films will do when they want to light their scene at night and they still want to keep it exposed properly, but still give off the feeling of night. They will actually set their color temperature to a lower number, such as 4000, because then the image in your camera turns a little bit more blue. And it is a little bit more convincing that you're shooting at night. It is the same logic and the same intention when you try to shoot during blue hour instead of darkness. And locking your white balance as well as setting your color to a flatter profile is very beneficial, especially if you want to learn how to color grade. Which also helps with the next tip on low lighting. If there's not enough light in the sky or at your location, and the camera image still looks too dark, there's still one more thing you can do. The last thing we can do is add lights of our own. Now, unless you're indoors in a studio or have a generator, you're going to want to look into some portable lights. Some affordable good options you can look into are a battery-powered mini LED light, or stronger battery-powered video lights like the Amaran 60D or 60C. However, while I was thinking about this video idea, there was one particular set of lights that I thought would be perfect for it. There's this company I've been following for a very long time and have a set of products that I particularly love. And the company, bless their hearts, said yes. And I'm actually using their lights right now to light the scene that you're seeing at the current moment. This company's name is called Nanlite. And they make cool ass lights. They're so cool. Look at this thing. It's changing colors in my hands. These lights ended up fitting our needs pretty well because not only are they adding texture and so much interesting lights to the scene, but also because of the tube and how it's already diffused versus a harsh light that casts a lot of shadow, the drone, in any event that it would fly in front of the lights, which happens sometimes when you're flying, especially if the light isn't high enough, it didn't cast that much of a shadow and was a lot less noticeable. You definitely don't need lights this fancy when you're starting out. However, if you do want to invest in a solid set of lights, these Nanlite Pavo tubes are amazing, especially when you buy them in a set, because then you have multiple angles you can light your scene with. So if you're interested, take a look. I'll have a link in the description, and if you want to support the channel, go ahead and click it and take a look at them. So after applying these tips I just shared with you, trying to find a good location, making sure our camera settings are set primely, and also adding our own lighting, this was the result that I was able to get with my friend Abby, who danced with the lights. This was definitely an experimental shoot on my end. Like I said, I advise and I also practice trying not to fly in pitch black nights just because of how our GoPros are so lower performing at nighttime. And when I can help it, I'll shoot at least at blue hour at the latest. But it's cool to know that there's at least an option to fly at night if we will it. Let me know in the comments if this video helps, and if you guys have any more tips that you'd like to share that are good for shooting drone or FPV shots in low lights, I would love to hear them because we're all still learning. I want to learn from you guys, and every comment I see has always been very helpful in one way or the other. And if you implement these tips to your own projects, not only will you be able to shoot better FPV and drone footage in low lights, but you will unlock a time and an ability to shoot in ways that most other pilots cannot. Thank you guys for watching. This has been Kai, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.